Hi, everybody. This is day 1475 days since Richard was brutally murdered, dismembered on Fort Bliss, and we don't have his remains. We don't have his remains. We have the reports. We have the reports of his brutal murder. We have witnesses. The absolute evidence is mounting. There are ongoing and active state and federal investigations going on. Multiple agencies looking into this, and we're only beginning. We're only beginning because as you start making progress with the institutions, then there is courage that's mounting. And that courage then sends you information. And so at the beginning, there was a lot of fear. There's been a lot of fear. Remember, 2020, July 2020, it was really not so far after the Walmart mass shooting. And the Walmart mass shooting put a lot of fear into people. And I don't think it was really because of the mass shooting. I think people don't totally understood from what I'm hearing. They understood that this was orchestrated. And I think that it was because it was orchestrated, and the way it looks, the way the evidence looks, and the way it's being covered up, it is from a rogue criminal group from the original response team, right? A rogue criminal group from the original response team, that it was orchestrated with our own tax money, with our own, this is what it looks like. This is what people are telling me that, and they're saying this is not a conspiracy. This is using the evidence and using the witness testimonies and what happened to the witnesses. And we can't forget that Glendon Oakley Jr. was found dead in his barracks room on April 8th, 2020. And he was a major witness to the many, many M4 guns. The team running through the mall with M4 guns, all dressed in black, and shots being fired in the mall, Cielo Vista Mall there on the 3rd of August 2019. He was a major witness. He told his story to Wolf Blitzer. He told his story to Wolf Blitzer on CNN, and immediately the attack dogs, the paid for attack dogs, were sicked on him, and he was being retaliated immediately against, like Richard. And how can I say like Richard? Because I have videos of Richard, and I spent time with Richard, and I heard Richard, and the same spirit that I witnessed in Glendon Oakley Jr., I witnessed in our son. And something is not right. Something is not right. And they really have an advantage, these evil people, because families that like to mind their own business and let their children grow up and don't want to pry too much, and we totally trusted Richard and his base, his foundation, who he was. We totally trusted that. We did not want him to join the military because we knew that the military, had these challenges, these security breaches, these, this notion And I think this is the notion that is going on right now in our political sphere. And this is absolutely why there is no way I would ever vote for Harris and what is his name? Stolen Valor VP pick. Um, there's no way for the notion that they keep spreading, and it is a false claim, and it is a dangerous false claim. And the claim is that it's no one's business. You can love who you want to love. And it's no one's business. And and yet, let me tell you, they're all in your business. They're all in your business. But then they make these absurd claims like this. And I want to say that that is absurd. You can't just love whoever you want, that there are no boundaries. There are boundaries. And by the word love, I would say it's the eros love that they're talking about. They're talking about who you can have a sexual relationship with. And they're saying that there's no boundaries for that. And yet there is. There is. And you can't. You can't just do what you want. And no one can just do what they want. That's why we have the word discipline. That's why we have the word training. That's why we have laws, right? Because, and we have social mores, right? Because you can't just do whatever you want, and you can't just have a sexual relationship with whoever you want. And this notion that they are trying to put that out, that we have to be tolerant of criminal activity, because that's what they're saying. They're saying that, if young girls are brought into Fort Bliss for sexual activity, that we have to be okay with that. And I'm not. And the ages seem to get younger and younger and younger. And it's not just young girls, right? And it's not okay. And then they get filmed and it turns into child pornography, which is child torture. But all is child sex trafficking. Because that all requires grooming. That all requires grooming. And I'm very grateful. What was his name? Kanye West, for putting out that really good little speech. How, I guess that woke him up. I don't know how he feels right now, but he made that little speech, and I thought it was just amazing because he was absolutely right. And what he said is all pornography is child sex trafficking. And you can't just, eros love, the erotic who you want. You just can't do it. And the notion that there are no boundaries is absolutely false. And for a candidate for president to be spreading this notion of criminal activity, and we're tolerant of criminal activity. That's so destructive. Um, is absolutely indication that we need to put our vote somewhere else. And absolutely, the vote is important, right? Because we are a government by the people. So I'm really appalled by that continued narrative, criminal narrative that's coming from that campaign. That really, it's none of their business. You know, they need they need to be talking about how to cut this government because the spending is so out of control. The spending is for to pay wages, wages, all these wages of all these government workers. That's where the bulk. It's legalized theft. That's what it's just. Um, okay, so let me give another example of that. So you have these young girls being brought in during COVID. This is the thing. People were so scared because of the Walmart and knowing, oh my gosh, we have a security breach. We have those working in response teams that are up to no good. And it is, we can't even go into a Walmart to buy some school supplies in safety. In a Walmart that sells weapons, that provides, hundreds of thousands of dollars for security. And thank you, Anicia. I just turned on my to see that. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yet, what does the manager do? The manager just gives that money out in bonus, and not one security guard is there on that day to protect the people. That's why the community was upset and scared, I believe, in 2020. Because then the case was just, well, the police chief died, and Glendon Oakley Jr. was found dead, and Memo Garcia died. A year later, it was no answers, and the suppression of so many that did have answers, that wanted to give answers. And there was just misleading information from an unreliable source, a criminal criminal, totally background, Ernest Christopher Grant, who was, just put around as the media sweetheart, like you're supposed to believe everything he says, and he's just a big fat liar. And that's not me calling him a liar. That was the El Paso Police Department having to admit that he's a liar, that he's an unreliable source. And yet the news media continue to use him, and they continue to use him, and they didn't take down the story. And this is, a good example of what we've had to deal with unreliable sources like convicted criminal Ilani Hart, and Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, and Danae Katzen, and Belen Rocha, and these unreliable sources up to no good. and really even part of the rogue criminal group that targeted Richard's case, that is connected to, we believe, the main suspects of the murder of Richard. So, this is so with that, who really is Ernest Christopher Grant? Well, it's hard to find out because they ghosted him. So really, he's really up to no good. Absolutely. And so the fear was there, and then and then they rolled out COVID, and I think people were, um, afraid of viruses. I already hated the germ theory, because I have grandchildren, with 9 grandchildren and they're young. Um, you're like, whatever, whatever. I'm giving my grandbabies, or making sure that the parents give them good, clean bubble baths, and give them a lot of loving and good, healthy food and good water. Um, Good, clean water is so important. I mean, water is so important. Why don't they, they control our water so much, right? Instead of making sure if they loved us, like a Philadelphia kind of love, a filio, right? A filio kind of love. If they really cared about us, we would have the best, cleanest water everywhere. And water is cheap, it's everywhere. And they absolutely have the technology to desalinize the water and give us, they have the technology to structure the water, because when you structure water, it filters the water. They know all about this. And if they really wanted us healthy, they would make sure that we all, even in El Paso, because see, the thing is I was born in White Sands, and I went to school. I went to kindergarten. I went to first grade. I went all the way fourth grade. Then we went away for a little bit to Germany. Then we came back. And then, of course, I did my middle school. Look, I'm very familiar with El Paso. And in those days, I have good memories. That Rio Grande was flowing. Flowing. Don't tell me we don't have water. We have water. And they're controlling the water. And they're messing with properties and property prices and all of that. That's very clear. And El Paso absolutely has water. It's an ancient city. It's an ancient city. It has resources. Why do you think they mine, right? It's an ancient city. So, absolutely it has water sources, but they control it. And if they filio loved us, a brotherly love, a caring for our health, they would let that water flow. And we would have the most beautiful, healthy people, right? And so I've always, been very leery of the germ theory. I just thought it was really stupid. I thought it was, and I hate to use the word stupid because people have their versions of the word stupid. I think stupid means that it's like a stump in the road. You can't go forward. It's your thought stops and you can't move forward beyond it. But that whole, it just seemed absurd to me. And so this whole virus thing, I still kind of believed in viruses when the whole 2020 came around, and I was, thinking, I just can't worry about it. Someone murdered Richard. They didn't even contact us. We're so far behind. We're so far behind in finding answers. We've got to get to El Paso. We've got to get over to Mexico. And I was even hesitant because not so much about uh, getting anything, right? But because I knew that something really murderous had happened to Richard, and I didn't know if we were going to be targeted. I had to get over my fear. It took what, a few minutes, I think. I think maybe a day or two to get over the fear. And once I got over to Juarez, it was like, oh, why was I afraid? Let's go, let's go. And so we just went over there and we got to speak to so many, and we got to see what was happening to the people in Mexico. Um, and people were being exploited, just like our military is being exploited, just like El Pasoans are being exploited. It's very clear that just like the young girls coming on, being brought in to Fort Bliss for an erotica, right? I mean, that's what we were told. And that Thomas Kane gave them the passes, who he was the director of emergency services. So if the director of emergency services, with the blessing of Major General Clem Coward and Command Sergeant Major Jakovitz, are going to bring in young girls to let the soldiers have their way with them and party and schmooze with them with no good intention. There's no good intention. There's no good intention when there's drugs and alcohol and a party with young girls. There's no good intention. And it really is exploiting them. And this was going on, and when we went into the meetings and when that was going on, I was like, okay, I'm done with the germ theory. I'm just done, right? It doesn't make sense. It is not real. It is a psyop. Trash it, right? Just trash it. So, you just kind of take it out of your mind and wad it up and throw it away, and then you're free. You free your mind, and then you can deal with people, and you can deal with your grandkids and everything. And then you have some new questions. But you absolutely free your mind and your life to move forward and get answers, for the absolute insanity that was going on. And I think, of course, we weren't the only ones that happened to. So many people. And they, right now everyone is making jokes. I hear jokes. Even Joe Rogan made some jokes about before and after. Before and after 2020, right? Before and after 2021. And it really did, change so many people. And I think for the better. We really got to ask some very, very important questions. And so, where is our officials? This another joke going on is like, if if a doctor is afraid that you just had a stroke, used to, he would say, well, he would test you. And he would say, who's the president? Right? And, now you're like, I don't know. It's not clear, right? It's not clear. Who is it right now, right? So the doctor can't even use that question. The doctor can't use that question now because we don't know. People have their, well, I think maybe, I don't know, whatever. You can't ask that question. So, who is the district attorney for the 34th Judicial District Attorney's Office? Who is it? It's supposed to be somebody, right? And they're supposed to be the prosecutor, and they're supposed to be uh, getting the Walmart case into a court, right? Let's hear it. Let's hear all the evidence. Let's hear. And, 5 years later, everything is being sabotaged in that case because all the evidence, and, like the memories of people, that starts fading. It's not crisp anymore. And people leave, right? This is the same thing with Richard's case. You have so many retired, you have so many that have just left. Um, so everything gets mucked up, just gets mucked up. And that's, it's like that's their plan because who really is a district attorney? We know that Bill Hicks failed his installment. We have confirmed proof, evidence that he absolutely failed his installment. And they're just pretending like, is it John Briggs that's really the DA? Is it what's her name? Uh there's a group. We know it's not Justin Underwood. He's not in the ADA. He's a private attorney, but up to no good. Up to no good. So, who really is? The Shapleys, right? That's who I'm thinking of. The Shapleys. Is it one of the Shapleys, right? Um, who really is running the district attorney's office? Because we know that everything Bill Hicks touches is illegitimate. He's ruining cases after cases. And that's why he can't even really bring forth the Walmart case. He can just use it as a political tool to run his campaign. And yet, nobody, not even Mr. Montoya, is not even addressing the elephant in the room. And I think that he should say, Mr. Montoya should say, you know what? I think we need some handcuffs on Bill Hicks. But he's pretty silent. He's not even running his campaign properly. Maybe he knows that he doesn't have to, that he'll just win, right? So, elections do matter. Politics do matter. I've been told so many times they don't matter. They don't matter. Yes, they do, and all of the media, it really does matter because every story that they put in ink becomes evidence. And right now, we have really bad evidence because they're using unreliable sources. They're giving misinformation out. And that's being used to affect policy. And that's why, our communications to Google are so important, to Facebook are so important. We were pretty successful for a while, I don't know how long, with the whole Facebook. And we do stopping the impersonation, stopping. I was just telling, really, it was my priest. I was telling my priest, I said, and I don't know if I can tell you. I'm not going to tell you. But I'm just going to say we've been successful with the ongoing and active investigations that are on the state level and the federal level against the perpetrators in Richard's case. And, it just seems there's so many things going on behind the scenes, and I think that people that have been with us for a long time um, notice things and notice that the criminals seem to be uh, e- getting caught, getting caught, and getting exposed, and something is happening. And so it's slowly grinding, that wheel of justice is slowly grinding, and it's grinding fine, and it's starting to you can see it. And so, we're just waiting for the murder suspects. Um and even that, there's indication, when there's silence like there is, something's going on, right? Something's going on. But Bill Hicks allowed these cases to just sit there, and we begged him. But now, him being a usurper and a trespasser and failing his installation, and having cases of his own because people are not happy with him, and then having all of his conflicts of interest with purchase funeral homes, um, and with these LLCs, y'all. He has conflicts of interest with the LLCs because they all know each other. They're all, they're all one big um, criminal group, right? And so he has a lot of conflicts of interest, and he has all this, so all of that is being exposed, and he absolutely cannot do his job. And we understand now why, because of all of that. Why the young girls, the one young girl living in the barracks being pimped out, the young girls being brought on to Fort Bliss, the Walmart case, and of course Richard's case and more, have not been addressed, right, by him. So, he'll say, "Oh, we've got something scheduled," but it's not a court case, right? It's they're playing politics. And now we have a very, very good indication of the problems surrounding Bill Hicks. We had El Mayo, right? El Mayo that was entrapped. Well, he was tricked. I think there's reports that he was kidnapped, that he was even hurt during the kidnapping, and with El Chapo's son. And then there was another El Chapo son that got released. And now they have sent El Mayo to New York. They've sent him to New York. Why? Because they said the security in El Paso is not secure. El Paso is not secure. So why are the El Pasoans paying so many taxes if El Paso is not secure? El Paso is not secure enough with Fort Bliss. With Fort Bliss, that humongous piece of land that is given to our military, all the support given to our military, all of the costs for the El Paso Police Department, all of the law enforcement costs, all the border stuff, all the everything, and yet all that money, and it's just so much. Yeah, we have to put it together. We really have to put up a chart to show everybody what El Pasoans have to pay for in order to have security in El Paso, and yet we're being told there's no security in El Paso to even have a drug lord, or one criminal tried in El Paso. He has to be sent up to New York. Now, are they saying that cartel is all in El Paso? That the opposing cartel members are in the system in El Paso? Is that what they're saying? I mean, think about this. We know what's going on in the Walmart case. The Walmart case was orchestrated, that there's multiple shooters. We know that Richard was murdered, and yet they were telling us that, oh, he just disappeared, and oh, we don't really look for soldiers, and all this narrative, all this false and fake, misleading narrative. We know that Tavita Nusa is a prime suspect, and he's CID agent. We have the VA Pablo, James Courtney Hart, and his convicted criminal wife, Leilani Hart. She has a new name now because they got divorced and all that mess. Anyway, so, that are the parents of Richard's platoon leader, Dallas Hart. And, all of this information, even from the first sergeant, from the first sergeants, that they have conflicts of interest. They teamed up with the Harts because, who knows with the Pablo, who gets the disability checks, right? Who gets a disability check? Who is 100% disabled? That's a good question. How did that all happen? Right? I mean, it really is like a little criminal cabal, right? A little criminal network using the VA. And I should say, in my opinion, allegations, whatever. But I know so many people that are on disability. And, there's questions there. Who really? Okay. And they're like, they seem to all have conflicts of interest with, James Hart, the father of Dallas Hart, and all of these LLCs. And so people are looking at the internal corruption, the internal criminal network. They saw it for themselves with the Walmart case, with Richard's case, and now with El Mayo's case. It's like he has to be sent up to New York. And what am I paying all this taxes for? So that Veronica Escobar could give a fancy check to somebody for, why? Why? I mean, because she's so up to no good. And I saw in the news that she was playing the blame game like, oh, they're not doing anything. They're not doing anything. Governor Abbott's not doing anything. Governor Abbott has been pouring money into the prosecution and the defense teams like Joe Spencer. You think he's, 5 years sitting there not getting paid? He's getting paid for the defense of Patrick Crusius sitting in isolation. It is just, talk about scamming. It's a huge scam. And if they wanted to bring these cases to trial, they would. And absolutely, Richard's murder case, capital murder case, with the suspects of Dallas Hart, of Tavita Nusa, of Leilani Hart, of James Courtney Hart, of Jonathan Caleb Ambrose, of Danae Katzen, of, Belen Rocha. There's so much there. Of Nadal Bayim. They could absolutely, there's so much money poured into law enforcement agencies. I mean, 15 plus agencies sat there in the Task Force Find Richard Halliday meeting. They could absolutely try El Mayo, keep El Mayo safe. And, if they were doing, um, if, if it all worked like they said and promised the people and all that, they're just, they just mislead. There should be no problem for a city like El Paso to have El Mayo in a prison and be tried. But no, there's the security is not good in El Paso. And we've been saying that, right? There's security breaches in the Walmart case. There's security breaches in Richard's case. There's security breaches all over Fort Bliss, where they're allowing a young girl, probably still has a teddy bear, probably has one of those kitty cat purses, the stuffed little kitty cat purses, um, being pimped out, living in the barracks. You have an NCO just recently. I think didn't he murder a soldier, or was it vice versa? I think it was the NCO that murdered the soldier. Please correct me there. And you know, uh, absolutely security breach after security breach, and it's because of this notion that we can just love whoever we want to love. That's what they say. They really twist the word love, because what they're saying is eros. What they're saying is legalize theft, um, the torture of children, the the trafficking, the destruction of cities, the excusing violent criminals. That's what they're saying. They're making excuses for themselves, and they're, like eros. You gotta, with no discipline, no boundaries, no social order whatsoever, unless it is tyranny. And this is, if everybody gets to cheat, this was told to me today, if everybody gets to cheat, then what's going to happen? Because cheating is allowed. That's the whole point of this notion. I should be able to eros, cheat, steal, abuse, burn, kill, and get away with it. Extort. That's what they're saying. No boundaries. And Richard, 21 years old, just had turned 21 years old. And they were trying to make all kinds of excuses for the brutal murder that they were covering up. And few of them put forth a smear campaign into the law enforcement community, into those chat groups, into those NCO groups, to dehumanize Richard, to make excuses for the brutal murder, dismemberment, and the cover up And also, before that, the retaliation that he suffered for being a whistleblower. And I think it was the murder. And I'm no psychologist or whatever, but their excuses were to excuse what he was reporting. And we know the problems because Leilani Hart told us. She told us on the 22nd of July, 2020, in a notarized criminal confession affidavit to the CID, which is really odd that it would be to the CID, and then Tavita Nusa had it referred, coached her and had it referred to the FBI, and the FBI accepted it, put a number on it. She, of course, had access, an authorized access to the database and files, CID files and everything, and she got her FBI number. She got the CID number too. We have both of them. And how did you get those numbers? Because she was boasting. She was bragging. I control. A matter of fact, there was and please correct me, but there was a police report. Wasn't there a police report? Someone went in there and said, "Hey, look, this crazy woman, she is saying that she runs the Fort Bliss CID office. She's boasting, and she has she's even got these numbers that she's disseminating in the community." See what I've done? I'm controlling these Fort Bliss CID. Oh, well, how are you doing that? Well, because I'm giving Eros favors. And don't tell me I can't do that, because I can Eros whoever I want. He might be married. I might be married. We have made oaths. He might have children. I might have children. We might have families. Oh yeah, we are family. We are family, but I can Eros whoever I want. And in my complaint, though, my confession that I had notarized, I can say that in my family, we've had an Eros problem called incest. But I guess the FBI doesn't think there's boundaries. They've fallen prey to this notion that there's no boundaries, that you can Eros whoever you want. And that has been going on, corroborated by communication with James Courtney Hart, that's been going on for a long time. Now, Leilani Hart called it, what does she call it? Child sexual abuse, sexual assault of a 7-year-old in her master bedroom by multiple members of her family, of her household. And that's very concerning, because James Courtney Hart has and Leilani has an LLC called Hart's Child Care. That's concerning. And who's the DA there? Who's the DA? Who's the DA when all of this is coming up and we're reporting it over and over again? It's like, no, I know I didn't have a stroke. what's going on. These things need to be prosecuted, and the FBI had and I want to stress something too about the whole affidavit. She confessed, Leilani Hart confessed to illegal weapons purchasing. Okay, illegal weapons purchasing. And she was saying that it was in New Mexico. Um, there, there is no trafficking without the weapons. So, that's something that of course, child sexual assault, the incest, the child pornography, which is child torture, is all just shocking, so bad, shocking, right? And but this illegal purchasing of weapons, um, that allows for it to happen, because she even said that she was threatened by those very weapons. And so that's why there was no timely. Well, she also gives an excuse for not reporting the crimes, as she was threatened with her immigration status. So I don't know what that means. But that all is something that absolutely, we believe right now through our state and federal investigations is being relooked at. And we have confirmation that that's ongoing and active. And of course, this gives a lot of motive. It puts a lot of things together of what Richard was whistleblowing. We know that Dallas Hart was, when he came back from his deployment, rushed to go find the child pornography. We know that Richard's file and the evidence and all the things that he turned in, he was in communication with the CID, with Washington, D.C., with FBI Houston, with the CPS. That was being tampered with at the Fort Bliss CID. We know his file was being tampered with. We know that evidence is missing. We know that his belongings, his car, his phone, his passport, we know those things tampered with, misleading information, all of that. It's just evidence after evidence after evidence, connecting the suspects to Richard's case. And the other motive is that Richard's case became, and you can imagine how shocked we were when Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia came into the picture, connected, being family with Danae Katzen and her family, and Belen Rocha, right? 3905 Bliss Avenue. Can you imagine how shocked we were? That's confirmed that Danae Katzen and Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, and Danae Katzen is connected to Leilani Hart. They have history, and so was Ruggiero. This group, right? They're connected with Leilani Hart. And when Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia targeted our son and our son's case and our family and her son, Thomas Hoffman, because her ex-husband, they were divorced in 2001, was found with a bullet hole, dead, the door of the Walmart on August 3rd, 2019. Now, it's like, what? Why are they targeting our son's case? Why are they connected to KTSM? Why do they want to get this misinformation out there? And it becomes clearer and clearer, especially after we found out that Yvonne Rosales had one of the motives that we believe for them to attack her and to remove her from her rightful elected, she's an elected district attorney, was because of opening up an investigation into the El Paso Community Foundation for fraudulent dissemination of the Walmart mass shooting victims' funds. And, it's like, okay, that needs to be exposed. And that's when people go, watch out, watch out, watch out. That's where the fear comes from, is these people that are supposed to be having your back, supposed to be looking out for the greater good, supposed to be enforcing the law, start weaponizing our system against the very people that they're supposed to be working for. And there's real fear there. And I've been told many times, watch out, watch out. And I'm like, I know. But they murdered Richard. They brutally murdered my son. How many parents need to go through this? And, you can say, well, they didn't actually murder. Look, anybody that covered up, participated, looked the other way, was silence, Christ have mercy. The law doesn't work that way, that you can just look the other way when a child is being raped, that you can look the other way when a soldier is being murdered. Richard was a whistleblower. So they had double duty. Double duty. And, just turning 21, his life was stolen needlessly for sticking up for young mothers and children and our military and our country. He's a hero. He really is a hero. And all the smears haven't worked. The attempts to discredit him haven't worked. The retaliation against him hasn't worked. The only thing that worked was the brutal murder of him. An absolute capital murder. That's what they had to do to stop him. And is that good or bad? Is that good or bad? I don't know if you understand what I mean by that. that he didn't cower in fear at the minute that one of them tried to intimidate him, because they did. That he didn't cower to their retaliation of their fake, fake, unjust Gomar and Feel Great Article 15. Fake. That he didn't he didn't let them move him. He stood his ground. So just really proud for that. And I just, the narrative is so important, y'all. The reports, what's written down is so important. And we are being fed so many psyops, so many. I think we need to just go to God's word, go to his sacraments. I look at three things. Every word that proceedeth from the mouth of God, the seven sacraments, and creation. Right? Look at three things. And I try and I think, okay, that's the Holy Spirit, not limited to that, but that's how I need to live in the Spirit to go forward. Of course, I need good food and good drink and my grandkids and my garden, air to breathe, right? I need to take care of myself. That's the whole creation. Of course, we need the sacraments, that discipline. Not anyone can be ordained. Marriage is a sacrament. Baptism is a sacrament. Confirmation is a sacrament. Unction is a sacrament. Being in communion, taking communion is a sacrament. The Lord's Supper. And confession. Confession is a sacrament. Those are the things we move forward with and apply to our life. That's how a government for the people, by the people, of the people work. That's why Wycliffe said that. The Bible is for the government of the people, by the people, for the people, right? And, it's served us really, really well. We're such an old country. The Constitution has lasted for a long time, and if we keep chipping at it, we're going to lose our sacraments. Right? The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. If we thwart the blessings, if we don't understand them, if we can't pull up our boots, put on our full armor of God and protect them, defend them, there are boundaries. And God just, a medium-sized book, right? A medium-sized book, 7 sacraments, creation, very easy to understand for everybody. And yet the opposition wants to give us buildings and buildings and buildings full of laws that only apply to who they want to weaponize it against, right? Laws and regulations and taxes. I just heard they raised taxes in the area by like huge amount. Huge amount for what? We just found out that there's no security in El Paso. Even with Fort Bliss being right there, well, I can tell you that there's a breach of security on Fort Bliss. When you got two soldiers, one soldier killing another soldier, there's a breach of security. So, when you have the brutal murder of a whistleblower on Fort Bliss, and this is something I pointed out last night, and I got messages back, saying, "Oh, that was a great point. That was a really good point." And the point is, Richard was murdered on Fort Bliss. That's not me. That's the U.S. government. Okay? And that's what people are not being told through the media. Richard was murdered on Fort Bliss. Now, he's not murdered at sea, like in a submarine that gets blown up or, a ship that goes down and, oh, we don't have his remains. We don't have his remains. Sorry. It's lost at sea. No, he's not in the Navy. He was murdered, brutally murdered. Yes, he was dismembered. I understand that. But he was brutally murdered on Fort Bliss. He wasn't like in the sky over, bombing some kind of land for unknown reasons, right? I mean, these wars are just so absolutely absurd. And and lost in the battle, right? Lost in the battle, and he's missing in action, like Danae said. Richard's missing in action, right? That's not the case. Richard was murdered on Fort Bliss. Do not, or try to explain to us that the U.S. government doesn't have Richard's remains, when absolutely Nadal Baim said they found his remains. And I'm calling the Department of State, Robs. We're talking to all kinds of people, and oh yeah, they're over there. And then we find out Sean Bernabe, that dirty general, is looking, I think, maybe cleaning up at the Afghanistan mock village, Christmas 2020. Absolutely, they have Richard's remains. We've got DHS, we've got DES, we've got plenty of witnesses, but witnesses and directly connected to Richard's investigation. So they absolutely have Richard's remains, and we demand his remains. We demand them. Those are ours. That is my son. So, they can buy people, and, everything is about like Eros, the sex cult, or money. That's not what Richard was about, because that's not what our family's about. And I know, money helps because we're so overtaxed, and um, the inflation and everything. I absolutely know that, and I absolutely am working very, very hard to get this wrongful death suit. Absolutely. Because we want Richard's remains. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anicia, for coming on. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you for your questions. Um, and, staying with us for so long. And when we have, uh, we're getting new information back all the time. Um, but it's just a working information. We need this, we need that. This is where you need to go. There's such a quagmire and everything, and you have to keep going, and follow, and keep putting in those that information. Just logging in that information. And I've had several people tell me to go to AI and log in information and everything, and I've gotten responses back from people telling me to do that. And um, you know, at the end of the day, we have already so much information that we need to keep filling up all of those agency boxes. Okay, and sooner or later, I don't know how God is going to do this, um, but we're feeling it already. There's like this silence. This things are starting to happen, and we're getting a lot of like, oh, well, we need this and we need that, and other things, because the media has to document all of this, and they want to use unreliable sources. Remember that they're using unreliable sources, but now when it comes to a real story with real evidence, I think they're going to be like, oh my gosh, okay, how are we going to deliver the truth? I think it's so easy to deliver misinformation, but to deliver the truth is a challenge for them. So keep sharing, keep sharing, keep sharing these stories, and keep sharing. Sometimes I'm not always sharing everything that people are sending me. Please keep sending me all that information. We're going through it. We're putting the pieces together, trying to understand it all, and we're working on some other things behind the scenes to have a place to put all of this stuff, so that all this information, all this evidence, all these stories, everything, um, a database, yeah, that everyone can have and that everyone could go to. So, keep sending us this information. Thank you so much. God bless you. And I will be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye bye.